Oh, no, don't refresh. Ow. Okay, anyway, how does factoring a trinomial relate to multiplying binomials? Okay, so we're going to look and see how you can go from two things in parentheses that you multiplied together, like we did last week, to a longer trinomial, and then we're going to go from that trinomial and break it back down into two little pieces. Okay, so we're going to consider binomials x plus 2 times x plus 3, and the trinomial x squared plus 5x plus 6. And if you look over here, that kind of washes out. Okay, if you look over on the right, it shows the x plus 2 times x plus 3. And when you multiply them out, you get x squared plus 3x plus 2x plus 6. And then when we add together the 3x and the 2x, we get 5x. Okay, so really these two things equal each other. Okay, and if you look at them, the product of the second terms in the binomials is the same as the last term of the trinomial. So 2 times 3 is 6. And if you look at those same two numbers and you add them instead, that equals the number in the middle term. Not the variable part, but it's the number part. Okay, so we can conclude that since when factoring a trinomial, you can work backwards to try to find the related binomial factors whose product equals the trinomial. You can factor a trinomial of the form x squared plus bx plus c as x plus p, x plus q, if p times q equals c, and p plus q equals b. So what that's trying to say is that sometimes, this isn't always going to work, but for today, you're going to get some trinomials that when you look at this last term, think about its factors, they will multiply to be 6, and those factors will also add up to be 5. Okay? Just like those puzzles we looked at the very beginning. What numbers multiply to be this, but add to be that? That's what you can do in your factor. Okay, so let's look at the factored form. Same problem, x squared plus 5x plus 6. You want to figure out a factored pair of 6 that has a sum of 5. So you can get 6 by taking 1 times 6, but when you add 1 and 6, you get 7. That's not the number there. You can also factor or get 6 by taking 2 times 3. And 2 plus 3 is 5. So this is the pair we want to use. Okay. Once you determine what two numbers multiply to be your last number and add to be your middle number, you basically just put them in parentheses. Oh wait, they did this first. They're just showing it with algebra tiles, how this would work. But basically you just put them in parentheses. So you take, these are both positive numbers, so you make sets of parentheses that start with an x, and then you put these numbers here inside the parentheses with it. So you have x plus 2 and x plus 3. They 2 and 3 multiply together to equal 6 and add together to equal 5. So we undid all the multiplication that we learned how to do last week. Okay, and because this has an x squared, or this x squared doesn't have any numbers in front, these here will just be a plain x. We'll see some when there's a number in front of that, but we're going to start with just a plain x squared. So when you factor, your x's will be plain and lonely, no number in front. Okay, let's look at some examples. figure out two numbers that multiply to be 36, but add together to be 13. Okay, and because these numbers are both positive, like, I'm gonna put positives there for you. So you basically need to rewrite this bottom line with numbers in there. Figure out what two numbers multiply to be 36, but when you add them together, you get 13. And there's lots of different ways to get 36, but only one way that they'll make it 13. And that's what's kind of cool. Yes, but when you write your answers, you'll want to do it like this, like they'll want the whole thing.
No.
But not plus in the middle.
Oh.
It'll be like parentheses.
Oh.
There, perfect. Okay, let's look at the second one here. Oh. It is x squared plus 11x plus 28. Find two numbers that multiply to be 28, but add up to be 11. Yes, yes. Multiply to be 28, add to be 11. I got it wrong. You got it wrong, okay. Nope. Yes.
You just have to think about it.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So you got 7 and 4, and they were both positive. Now, I could have wrote 7 and then the 4. You could have wrote 4 and then the 7. Doesn't matter, you'll still get it right. Okay? Because multiplication, you can switch them around, so it doesn't matter which number you put in which set of parentheses. But it does matter, like they will prefer you to put the x first and then plus the number, x plus the number. Okay, question so far? Okay, let me get this started. Thinking because it's taken a while. Okay, here we have a polynomial or a trinomial, x squared minus 11x plus 18. How does this trinomial differ than the ones we just did? Harley. There's a negative in the middle. Okay, let's see how it changes, how we solve it. Okay, we still need to find a factor pair or two numbers that multiply to be 18. However, the sum needs to be negative. So it's a negative 11. So whatever sign is in front of the number, it goes with it. So they multiply to be a positive 18, but they add to be a negative 11. Okay, so they didn't list all the factors of 18, but they did list two sets. We've got negative 1 and negative 18, which add to be negative 19, negative 2 and negative 9, which add to be negative 11. So even though there are more factor pairs, there's no need to continue once you find the correct one, because there's only one that will work. They're not going to give you ones that like you won't find a pair, because then that's something else, and we'll get to that later. So everything difficult to be solved that you see today, or over the weekend, or next week, whatever. So we would take these two numbers and put them in the set of parentheses, and because they are negative, now the numbers in the parentheses, or there's negatives in the parentheses too. So instead of plus 2 plus 9, it's minus 2 minus 9. Okay, and then you can go back and check it out by multiplying, and you should get the original thing. So if you take x minus 2 times x minus 9, you get x squared minus 9x minus 2x plus 18, which simplifies to x squared plus 11x plus 18, which is the same thing we started with up there. Okay. The answer that you want to give, though, is that stuff in parentheses. If you go back through and multiply it, you're given the same thing that you were given to solve. So make sure you give that stuff as your answer. Okay. Now there's some more to practice. X squared minus 8x plus 15. Two numbers that multiply to be 15, but add to be negative 8. Yes, yes, yes. Is that a plus or minus sign in your second? Probably a plus. Should it be a plus?
No.
Okay. Here, get that. So that one for Alex here is x minus 3, x minus 5, or x minus 5 and x minus 3. Next one, x squared minus 13x plus 42. Multiply to be 42, add to be negative 13. Yes. 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 Okay. X minus 6, x minus 7. Sometimes they come to you very easily, and sometimes you have to think some. But these are kind of fun because it's kind of like a little riddle or, a guessing game you have to figure out. But then, I mean, the process is pretty easy. Like, you just plug them into this form. Like, that's not going to change. Okay. Questions yet? Okay. Now we've got the trinomial x squared plus 5x minus 6. How does this differ from our first one? Austin?
It has both plus and zero.
It's got a positive and a negative, but the last number is negative now. Okay, so just like before, the number in front of these goes with the whole term. So it's really like a positive 5 and a negative 6. So what we're going to want to do is find two numbers that multiply to be a negative 6, but add to be positive 5. Okay, so in order to do that, how do we get a negative number when we multiply?
Positive and negative.
One positive, one negative. So these are those ones that you guys we struggled with on the riddles. Because which one do we put positive? Which one do we put negative? It's going to be important, which one you put positive and which one you put negative. Okay. So again, we're going to look at the factor pairs, but we want them to equal negative 6, and then we want to try to add them together and get 5. So because C is negative, they'll have opposite signs. That's what you guys told me too. So one way to get negative 6 is to take 1 times negative 6. When you add those together, you get a negative 5. Okay, we wanted a positive 5. So now let's try the other signs. Negative 1, positive 6. When you multiply those together, you get a negative 6. But you add them and you get positive 5. Okay, oops. So when you plug those into the parentheses, the 1 will have a negative sign. The 6 will have a positive sign. So when you factor it, you've got x minus 1 times x plus 6. Okay, so if you've got, okay, if you've got two positives in the trinomial, your factors are both going to be positive. If you have a negative and a positive, you're going to have two negative things in your factoring. But if the last thing is negative, that's when you have like opposites. So one will be positive, one will be negative. And again, you can always just double check to make sure you have the right thing. But as long as you come up with two terms that, or two numbers that multiply and add to be the right numbers, you should be fine. Okay, so let's practice. X squared minus 5x minus 14. So two numbers that multiply to be a negative 14, but then would add to be a negative 5.
Oh.
Think about adding those numbers. Is that in the right? What's the sign in your first one? Minus K, right? Yes. So those add to be a negative 5. Positive 7 minus 2. Yes. Yeah.
I put them in the wrong spot.
Yes. You put them back in the exact same place you had them the first time.
Oops.
Yes. Okay. So you know that one's going to be positive and one's going to be negative. The numbers that multiply to be 14 are 7 and 2. And you got to think, okay, well, my number's negative. So that means my bigger number must be the negative one. So 7 is bigger than 2. So 7 goes with the negative sign. 2 goes with the positive sign. Okay, try the next one. X squared plus 6x minus 16. X squared plus 6x minus 16. Yes. There you go, Arthur. Yeah. You have a video? Yes? Yep. And then you can, okay. All right, so we've got the two numbers that multiply to be 16, negative 16 here would be 8 and 2. And because our number here in the middle is positive, that means our bigger number would need to be the positive one. So it would be x plus 8, x minus 2. Questions? Okay. Let's see here. What is the next thing? How many examples are there? 5. This is number 4. But I may wait. Because this is kind of like the simple, and then we add, it doesn't make it hard.
Yeah. It's not really hard.
Okay, well then, we're gonna stop there then. Except I do have this. So as we go through factoring polynomials, there's a bunch of different things we might do. Because there's lots of different types of polynomials. So let me hand this out first. Okay, so you'll see it's kind of like a chart to help you figure out what you need to do. And we'll fill it